Obviously, you were understandably quite deflated last Thursday. How are you feeling 7 days on?
Yeah, look, performances like last week, James. So sometimes as a coach, you just don't see it coming. You see a team that's prepared pretty well, positive in the week, on the back of a good win. So yeah, it were a performance that left us all feeling mightily disappointed and deflated. But again, I couldn't praise our boys enough for the turnaround that they've given this week. And it's all right training well. We've got to back that up, playing well with a performance. But while the disappointment, throughout the team, throughout the coaches, throughout the stadium, with our fans last week, I think we've got a bunch that are pretty determined to get back on the horse, James. I think we can use our experiences last year, where we probably feel we were in maybe a little bit more difficult situation than this, given the amount of injuries that we had and chopping and changing to his team. We've had a bit of that this year, but we think we can draw on them experiences to know that there's plenty of time left, and we've certainly got the capability to turn around what's a disappointing run of form for us at the moment.
You said you were going to look to get some answers from the group. Have you had discussions this week?
Yeah, I think our review generally, obviously, you look at the game and the clips. We had a chat last Friday about what we were doing well and what we weren't doing well, and what we needed to improve, and in particular who needs to drive it. We feel that we got a pretty good and honest bunch of senior players that want to assume that responsibility for driving some of the collective effort bits we don't feel we're doing at the moment. You can carry the ball as hard and strong as you want on your own, but it's always more effective when you've people back behind the ball pushing for you. You can get off your line and try and be as strong as you want in a tackle, but getting up as a straight line and getting numbers in, it's the collective effort parts, James, that we know we just haven't been up to the mark, consistent enough in those areas, mate. Understandably too, there's some parts of our game, I guess, where we're not quite in sync, and we've got some guys not in the form that they need to be in. But that's for us as coaches to work through too. But it's the collective effort part that we want to really focus on this week, mate.
And just harking back to last week one last time, you obviously said you didn't want to be flogging a dead horse. Have you sort of come to realise that it's not quite as dead as you might have thought last week?
Yeah, no, I don't think that. I think what you're getting from myself there, James, is an extremely disappointed coach, and an honest reflection of how you're particularly feeling at that time. I know our game's about, you have to ride some ups and downs and show some grit and spirit and resilience, and I think we've shown that plenty of times in the past. And do I think we're at that point at the moment? Absolutely not. I'm quite happy to come in the post-game and pre-game press conferences and cliche my way through them, if you like. But as you guys know, I've always tried to be, portraying my feelings as honest as I possibly can at that moment in time. But no, I don't think I'd be sat here now, James, if I didn't think we had a situation what couldn't turn and couldn't turn very quickly.
Don't change, Rich. Don't change. What about this week then? What what sort of advice do you give to James Bentley, given the sort of pent-up sort of frustration that he's obviously felt over the few weeks, and given the sort of the landscape of the game at the moment? What do you say to him ahead of Friday? Thursday. It's Friday, isn't it? Friday.
Yeah, we had a conversation when it first happened. What we don't want to do with James is rein him in to the point where his game alters considerably, because one of the things. One of the main facets and reasons why we bought him is just he competes so hard. Occasionally that's overflowed for him into penalties and errors, and there's no doubt whatsoever in the current climate of the game and the fact that he's got a little bit of form in there, he's going to be watched keenly, and we don't have to say he's going to be a marked man in that term. So he knows that there's some levels he needs to find aggression wise to get in there what we know is a good James Bentley performance, but at the same time there's some boundaries that he knows at this moment in time, current climate in the game, he just simply can't step over.
Now, how much of a boost is it to have several sort of freshish bodies coming back in?
Yeah, it's a boost, and good players coming back in as well. Again, James, I look at our lineup tomorrow and think that's a strong lineup. But the team is always can be greater than the sum of its parts too. And I'm going to hark back to what we're talking about, collective effort. Names on paper, good players on paper will always perform better when nobody really cares who gets the credit, and they're working coherently as a team. And that is the big message for us this week. Do your jobs, know your roles, make sure you're accountable in all your areas, and perform as a team. We just feel that there's times when our effort individually has been all right, and then there's effort that just needs to be, done within the process of knowing your role and what is unselfish efforts for the team. And again, mate, I just can't reiterate. It's a very, very simple message for us this week in that regard. We don't want to overcomplicate what we're doing with the ball, but at the same time, we need to find a bit more of that energy around pushing, supporting, and just going forward and playing with each other.
A couple of final points from me. First of all, Salford, what sort of challenge do you think you'll get from them?
Yeah, well, they're probably in a similar position to us, on the back of a couple of disappointing defeats after having a promising start to the year. And again, it's a game where both teams, I think, will be absolutely desperate to get the 2 points.
And Challenge Cup tie, what was your take on the 6th round tie this week?
Yeah, not giving it too much thought. Obviously, we've got a home tie, which is great. Couldn't have asked for too much more than that. But I've got to be honest, James, all our focus has been on this week. Sorry. I haven't heard too many guys mentioned about what's coming. We just want to make sure we get into that tie on a good footing.
Rich, just wanted to ask you about Cameron Smith. He's been getting a fair bit of praise, certainly on Sky. How important is he to the way you play, and talk about being in sync in ensuring that when you've got the ball, you have got that bit of sync, certainly through the middle?
Yeah, well, I've not heard any of the Sky commentary, mate, so I can't sort of elaborate or expand on anything those guys have been saying. Look, Cameron's a clever ball player. He brings clearly brings a good dimension to our attack in terms of ball movement and being able to bring our middle forwards onto the ball and tip the ball on and get to areas. Clearly we missed him last week. I think our halves missed the balance that he brings to our team when he's not playing, and obviously we're pleased to get him back this week. We no complaints with the tackle that he got suspended for. Just an error of judgment from him in the tackle there. But I think he showed some nice touches throughout the year, Matt. I think he brings a good dimension and clever ball play to our middle.
I know a lot of people will be looking at it and going, Leeds need a result against Salford. Is the message from you that really you need a good performance, and the byproduct of that is the results will ultimately come?
I think you've hit the nail on the head, mate. I think we need a good performance, and the byproduct of a good performance will be that. Looking at our season, I still think we've had a lot of changes, Matt. Week by week we've had a lot of changes, and obviously we had a pretty smooth pre-season. Got through our trial games all right. Had a full complement in terms of training and consistency in our lineup, and then presto, 3 or 4 rounds in after our trial games, we got some suspensions and some injuries, and I've got no doubt that we have had a little bit of a difficulty getting some consistency on our edges and certainly within our spine. Look, we know those guys have got to go to the game a little bit more at times. But I'll go back to what I said to James earlier, mate. It is a collective effort, and if everybody's performing the roles in and around some of those areas, it makes life easier for everyone. So, look, we can draw on our experiences from last year. We had a more difficult start, I would say, in terms of getting a team on the field at times and having to put square pegs in round holes for a number of games last year. But we competed well enough for long enough, and eventually we got to turn the corner and turned it pretty well and found ourselves 80 minutes from a grand final. My point in that is, look, we know our form at the moment has looked anything but that. But it can turn around very quickly, mate. And again, I'm working with a team he's not reflecting that in training. The mood's very positive. The quality of what they delivered on the training field has been good. We just need to convert that into an 80-minute performance.
But everyone who plays sport, they play to win. So how is it challenging to get the players to focus on the performance elements rather than the end outcome, or is that something that they're just sort of trained to focus on?
Look, quite naturally in situations like that, it can create a little bit of anxiety in your team. It's natural that as sports people, you have to roll the ups and downs, and when you're not winning, of course it's going to affect everybody's mood. Of course, the emotion of playing like we played last week has a detrimental knock-on effect in your team. But one of the challenges, if you like, is to dust yourself down, bounce back, and get ready to go again this week. And as I said, we had a chat last Friday after the game, rather than bombard us with stacks of video. And if I felt I'd got a team that were ready to throw every excuse up there in the book, that would be a bit more worrying. But they're not. We're accepting the ownership together. I said last week, it's my responsibility. But I was really pleased with the comeback that we had from the players this week, not only in the acknowledgement of where we're at and what we're doing, but how they're going to turn it around. And I couldn't ask for any more from them, Matt, to be honest.
Cheers, mate.
Thanks, bud.
Hi, Richard. It's Martin here.
Hiya, Martin.
Good to see you again, mate.
Thanks,
it just seems to me that looking at your season so far, and if I can really just generalise very greatly, you've had 1.5 good games, because I thought against Warrington, you played very well with 12 men for much of it, and everybody said you were unlucky not to win that game. And I just wonder, the sort of it must be difficult for the players when they put a lot of effort into that game and end up not winning it, even though they probably played better than their opponents. But then against Wakefield in the first half, I thought you were absolutely outstanding. One of the best performances of any team's given this season so far. But you didn't quite keep it up for the second half, of course. And then last week against Hull, I thought they beat you because they made so much ground, after contact. I thought their forwards were really magnificent last week against you. And it's probably the best performance that Hull have given for a long time that I can remember. So I don't think everything, what I'm trying to say is not everything in the garden is crap. There's a lot of good stuff there that just needs to be brought out again, surely. And Salford are a very different team from Hull, and I would think it's a great chance for you to get back on the bus, so to speak.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of that, Martin, too. I think sometimes things are never quite as bad as what they possibly seem, but also they're never quite as good as what they possibly seem as well. You can be in periods where both those statements are exactly true. And the bits what you're saying there, look, I felt against Catalan, I thought we defended really well for long periods against Catalan. And we had lots of chances to win the game, in that game. We had a really disappointing performance last week. Again, a team we felt it really were as simple as running hard and tackling hard and back to that collective effort. I'm not saying our guys lacked effort, but what I'm saying is we just didn't do it together well enough for long enough as a team, one little bit. And, the byproduct of that is you come off your try line a lot, you defend more good ball plays, you can't make the yardage down the field. So it has a massive effect on energy and possession counts. But my final point is, I do agree with you. We think there is a good team in here. Some consistency and continuity in that lineup would certainly help us. We've got to keep working on some combinations because, as I said, we lost Richie Myler in round one, having practiced with him and not really practiced with Jack the whole off season. So we know there's some combinations that will take a little bit more time to settle down, but it's in there, Martin. And as I said last week, it's my responsibility to get the best out of those lineups and whoever takes the field and make sure we're a little bit more cohesive in certain areas of our game. But we're certainly not writing our season off because we've had a disappointing start to the year. We know some of the stuff in our game is really fixable, and we know we can turn it around. We know the turnaround can happen really quickly.
Just a quick one on a couple of people that are out. Is there any update on Tom Holroyd and Sam Walters? Are they getting anywhere near?
Yeah, they are. Yeah, making good progress. Tommy Allroyd, not too far away. I think he's set his sights on the St Helens game, but it'll be in and around that particular time. He's back running at full tilt very, very shortly, next week or so. He's in good nick. Tommy has looked after himself really, really well while he's been off. Obviously, as a front row middle forward, he'll take a little bit of time to get used to that grind and up and down. But now he's in good shape, and Sammy's making good progress too. So I think all in all, Sammy's injury were 10 to 12 weeker, I think, and he's right on track. And again, Tommy's nearing the end of his, I think, 12 weeks. So yeah, he's not going to be too far away. Next 2 or 3 weeks, would say.
Just a quick one. We were speaking to Paul Rowley about half an hour ago, and he was giving his thoughts on the 6-a-game rule, and he said if it was up to him, he'd scrap the rule. I'd just like to know your thoughts on it, really.
Yeah, these are my thoughts and my thoughts alone. I would have never brought it in the first place. It's very, very subjective, and you guys will all have your own opinions. I've failed to see what it's brought to the game, apart from a load of groans from the crowd generally. I think it's made it difficult for the refs. And sometimes it has an effect on the game. That games can, start to look the same a little bit. It's tough for middles that are doing a lot of tackling, particularly on the back of that, to get back behind the ball and play. I honestly don't mind a penalty. I've never minded a scrum because I think it gives you different starts. And if it puts a bit more energy back into the game, the ball might be in play a bit less, but you might get a bit more energy back in the game where actually middles can get behind the ball and start to play a little bit. And we might see a little bit more creativity and offload and people behind the ball rather than your back five having to march you out of yardage all the time. It's interesting that we changed the rule on the back that the NRL did it. Again, subjective, but I would counter that our game aesthetically didn't look like the NRL's. I think it's been good in the NRL, but I don't think it's had or needed to have the same impact in this country. I do sort of agree. One of the schools of thought that a penalty in yardage, sometimes that's a very severe penalty for a very minor infringement. But it's interesting now the NRL have got rid of that bit and started giving penalties because people were blatantly using the rule to give an extra tackle away and really slow and control that first ruck to a ridiculous extent. So look, there's a lot more to be debated than that, but yeah, this is just my opinion. I feel it's brought nothing to the game but groans, and I feel there's nothing wrong with having a penalty and allowing more players to get back behind the ball and ask different questions on attack. So yeah, I'd happily scrap it.